Chapter 103. I can sense a great deal of power emanating from that thing. Harry didn't need to turn around to know who was behind him. Abaddon had the terrible habit of appearing anywhere he pleased while inside his home. It is called an arkstone, a magical crystal capable of storing magical energies from its surrounding area. Small crystals can be used to empower magical artifacts. And this one, it's the one you stole from that school, yes? The demon asked. Large arkstones are normally used to power the enchantments in magical constructions, like houses, castles, or a fortress like this one, Harry explained. I see, then I bet those humans are going to miss it. Harry scoffed. Tisk, what can they do about it? I have a much better use for this one. Oh, and what devious idea did you have in mind? The demon asked with interest. He had met many evil humans in the past, but none were as deranged as the one before him. Remember the magical circle that I used to summon you? Harry saw the demon nod. I'm going to make a much bigger one, but something like that will require a massive amount of magic to activate, much more than I can provide by myself, Harry said. This piqued the demon's interest. And how big is this city that you plan to destroy? Harry took a moment to think about it. I believe that the current population of London is about 7 million. Abaddon laughed. Devious indeed. Harry shrugged. This will just be the beginning of the end. I have something much better planned out for later. I can't wait, the demon said with anticipation. Before even opening the door, Harry was already hearing the screams and curses coming out of Pansy Parkinson's mouth. Once inside his bedroom, he spotted Luna and Susan attempting to restrain the angry girl. Let me go, Pansy shouted while kicking Susan off the bed. Ouch, Luna yelped when Pansy took a bite off her arm, forcing her to release her grip. Harry sighed and pulled his wand. Seriously, can't you handle one simple thing? As he said this, he conjured several ropes that tied around Pansy's body and quickly followed this with a silencing charm to shut her screams. Erg, Susan could barely stand up again. Not so much because of the damage caused by Pansy, but the damage previously done by Harry himself. The Cruciatus curse still made all her limbs ache, and his kicks had fractured a couple of her ribs. She bit me, Luna complained. Just go to the infirmary and get yourselves sorted out. I will handle the girl. The infirmary was something left behind by the Aurors who had been occupying his home. Of course, there was no healer to attend it, but it was still filled with all kinds of healing supplies, so Harry decided to leave it alone, just in case he needed it. Luna and Susan left his bedroom as fast as they could, and he finally turned his attention to Pansy Parkinson, who was now staring at him with her beautiful black eyes. My apologies for the previous treatment. I haven't been the best host tonight. Harry had recovered his usual good mood. The loss of his most useful slave had hurt him, but after having some time to think about it, he had come up with a way to make something useful out of it. I am now going to remove the silencing charm from you, but let me warn you that I have little patience for loud noises. He pointed his wand at her. Scream once, and I will make you experience some intense pain. Once he finished his warning, Harry dispelled the silencing charm, as well as removing the ropes. Pansy glared at him with unmasked hatred for a long while before she spoke again. Potter, what do you want from me? Not much, really. There was a time when I thought I had become obsessed with a woman who looked just like you. Her name was Helena. Harry sat down on a chair as he reminisced about his past mistakes. Helena, you called me that before, Pansy recalled. At the time, she had no idea why he was calling her that name. Indeed, you have the same face. You look so much like her that I even thought you were her reincarnation or something. She was a princess, you know? It's quite the compliment, Harry said. A princess, Pansy repeated. I don't know anything about any princess. No, I suppose you don't. Harry pulled out the slavery collar he had taken from the workshop. What's that? Pansy asked while looking at the object. It's something called a slavery collar. Once it's on you, it emits a compulsion as powerful as the Imperio curse. It will turn you into my most loyal servant who will follow every order with no complaints, Harry explained. Pansy had to make use of all her self-control not to shout at him. She moved back onto the bed, but there was no escape. Harry was sitting next to the only door that led outside. You want to put that thing on me? Make me a slave. That was my intention, Harry admitted, but the more I look at you, the more I started to realize something. This obsession he had with that woman ended up costing him everything in the end, and he will make sure that won't happen again. To avoid failure, he had to discard those old feelings. Leave them behind so he can become something more. I need to be better than that. Harry threw the collar away and raised his wand. Pansy felt shivers when seeing this. W8, what or why? Avada Kedavra. Harry didn't give her any time to scream or beg for mercy. The killing curse hit her body, and she went completely limp. Her corpse was now lying on his bed. What I should have done back then, he continued to look at her with cold eyes. This was something he would never have done in the past. He was a cruel man, but always had a soft spot for beautiful young girls. They had been his weakness. It was also his last shred of humanity, and now it was gone for good. Chapter 104. 2 weeks later, deep inside the Ministry of Magic. The new minister, Kingsley Shacklebolt, was staring down at a stack of papers on his desk. The expression on his face made it easy to note his state of displeasure. 3 more villages attacked, thousands of muggles missing, and we still can't get a hold on that demon boy? The minister glanced at the people standing in front of him. Sirius looked uncomfortable as he paced around the office, while Tonks bit her nails. Moody had to get his crazy eye under control before speaking. It's not that simple. We are trying our best. What we need. You best. I gave your new order all the resources that the Ministry of Magic could afford to give, and full authority to use any methods that you could think of. I even allowed the general to hire over 100 former criminals to fill the lines. We even know where his headquarters are located. Shacklebolt slammed his fist on the table. Let's go kill that monster already. Sirius flinched. You think we didn't already consider a direct attack? Any frontal assault on Azkaban would be a suicide. We would likely lose 90% of our troops to the demons and dementors before we even reach their lord. There was a good reason for choosing that place as a wizard prison. The place is an impregnable fortress. Correct me if I'm wrong, but that madman was already killed 500 years ago. By muggles, according to the documents that we found, the minister said. Surely we can do that again. He is not invincible. The real identity behind Harry Potter was no longer a mystery, and after making the discovery, they had wasted no time collecting as much information about Akrisdes Scarvok as possible. By now, they pretty much knew his whole life. At least the parts that were documented, based on books found in Azkaban after his passing. The kingdom that attacked him was destroyed not long after, because that mad king had lost all his men during that operation, Sirius pointed out. And he is much better prepared now, Tonks added. Look, Shacklebolt sighed. I am aware that the task looks near impossible. I have faced those demons myself. However, the Muggle minister is going crazy and is demanding answers. By this point, they know that this is being caused by one of us. The status of secrecy will be shattered if the Muggles end up declaring war on us. We don't have much time to solve this. The minister moved his hand to one of the drawers and pulled out a paper. Luckily, I do have some good news. What is that? Sirius' interest was piqued when he saw the seal on that document. Is that from the ICW? Tonks asked. Let me see that. Moody got closer and took the paper. Oh, they are going to help us. The minister smiled. I was able to convey the urgency of our situation, and today they sent me this letter. It says here that they are sending a dozen wizards to serve as aid, Moody commented. A dozen, that's it. Tonks' previous enthusiasm was quickly fading. The number is not as important as the identity of the individuals, the minister pointed out. I see. Moody noticed the list of names. The document detailed the identity of the dozen wizards and witches coming to assist them. I recognize most of these names. Dangerous folk. Every single one of them is an elite member of the ICW and a veteran combatant, the minister said. Well, I'll take it back then, Sirius said. When are we expecting them? Moody wanted to know. They should be here tonight. I will require the new order to collaborate with them as much as possible, at least. A hint of concern appeared on the minister's face. Will the general be able to work with these foreign wizards? I believe so, Moody said. At the very least, until the demon lord has been defeated for good, we can have his full cooperation. And after that, the minister asked. Moody frowned. We'll see. North Yorkshire, Catterick Garrison. Harry observed the military base from a safe distance. So this is the one I heard about. Will they have the weapons you seek? Abaddon was standing at his side. His form now looked much more human-like. Behind them were 3 short humanoid creatures with gray skin and black eyes. They completely lacked any facial features and didn't even have a mouth. Harry turned to glance at them. Will they get the job done, just as you promised me? He didn't sound completely confident. They will. These Eidolons demons can take any form you want and stay that way for a long time. They can also steal the memories of those they replace, allowing them to act exactly as the real one would do. All right, I did my research about this place and already have a good idea of who our targets will be, said Harry. Once he had replaced those 3 individuals with his demons, this military base and all its weapons would be basically under his control. With a wave of his wand, Harry applied invisibility charms to everyone present. This will be easy. The Muggles have essentially no defenses against magic. A bit of an unfair fight, don't you think? Abaddon asked with amusement. Harry ignored his comment. He never cared for fair fights anyway. Let's go. After this one, we have a few more bases to visit, so let's not waste time. Humanity's destruction will begin with the very weapons they had created to protect themselves. Chapter 105. A large number of wizards and witches were standing on a rocky hill. In the distance, beyond the violent sea currents, one could see a small island and the macabre fortress that stood over it. So, that is Azkaban, huh? I never thought I would have to go there one day. An elegant-looking middle-aged witch was looking at the former prison with disgust. Your ministry should have burned down that cursed building instead of trying to use it. I agree. An old wizard with a strong French accent joined the conversation with an even more pronounced expression of disgust. These British wizards have no taste whatsoever. 10 other wizards stood at their side. They were all dressed in the same elegant light blue robes, wearing the symbol of the ICW on their backs. Enough. Another witch, this one with a strong German accent, long blonde hair, and a stern face that failed to show any emotion, walked in front of the group and glared at them. We did not come here to criticize the British taste. We came to cleanse this filthy place from all the evil that plagues it. She covered her nose. I can smell the dark magic from here. It reeks. Then let's get started. Sirius walked towards them. Our troops are ready. He pointed at the large number of new order members they had brought. Over 600 strong. Most of their remaining forces were here, ready to finally take down Harry Potter and all the demons he had brought into their world. Along with the 12 elite wizards and witches from the International Confederation, it made for one of the biggest armies of magical folk that the world had ever seen. Compared to Muggles, the magical population was very small, so in comparison, this would be the equivalent of an army with 1 million troops. Yes, I can see that. The blonde German witch moved her eyes to the general and furrowed her brows. But let me make one thing clear, Mr. Black. We will not be taking any prisoners today. That evil boy who caused all of this will suffer the same fate as all those monsters he brought into our reality. Is that clear? Sirius became furious, as he knew exactly why she was telling him this. These wizards must have been given all the available information about Harry Potter. My godson is already dead. That thing in there means nothing to me. I wish for nothing more than to put an end to this, once and for all. The witch nodded. I'm glad we have an understanding. Wait, said Tonks. There should be 2 witches in there. They are innocent girls, controlled by the use of slavery collars. We need to save them. HMPH, innocent? The French old wizard scoffed. They are hardly our priority. You worry about them if that is what you want. Just don't get in our way. Tonks frowned. Hold on a moment, the general said with an authoritative tone. What is it, Mr. General? The German witch glared at Voldemort in a way that made her feelings about him very clear. The boy is mine. I will be the one who kills him, the general said while his intense red eyes moved over the 12 elite wizards. These were all looking back at him in return. You do not give us orders. Another one of the elite wizards said. We know exactly who you are. That mask is not enough to fool us, the French wizard added. Indeed, the German witch said. Don't think for a moment that the ICW doesn't know what is going on in the other countries. We never intervene because we didn't consider you enough of a threat. Is that so? The general huffed. Should I do something to change that? Hey, Moody exclaimed. Is this really the time to fight among ourselves? He pointed at the fortress in the distance. Don't we have something better to do right now? The Auror is correct, the French wizard said. Let's deal with this ugly business already. I hate this place. Remember, the colossal gray demons can regenerate, and those small blue ones would usually carry muggle weapons. And... Yes, the German witch interrupted Moody. We have all read the dossiers that your minister put together for us. We are very familiar with what these demons can do. I don't foresee any issues in dealing with them. We are just not sure about the numbers, Sirius said. Since our last encounter, the demon lord had attacked several more muggle villages. We are now sure that all these muggle disappearances were sacrifices for the summoning of these demons. So, we can expect that he brought many more. The witch nodded. Once you know how to kill a beast, numbers are a lot less relevant. I suggest that after we are done with all those monsters, we cleanse the entire place and burn everything to the ground. Someone suggested. Agreed, the German witch said. Better not take any risks, burn everything down. Sirius let out a breath he did not know he was holding. Then it's settled. We move at dawn. Remember to use the light to your advantage to avoid those shadow demons. He looked at Tonks. You take the rescue detail. Save those girls if you can. Tonks' jaw tightened, but she nodded. I'll try. Sirius felt a heavy weight settle on his shoulders. He thought of the boy he had once loved and hated in equal measure, and of the twisted thing that had risen in his name. Unlike those foreign wizards, he sought no glory or righteous justice, just to put an end to this nightmare. Perhaps, one day, when he dies, he can ask his friends for forgiveness for having failed in his duty as a godfather. Chapter 106. Expecto Patronum. Constructs of light were flying across the sky, and Dementors let out loud cries that showed their displeasure. Careful! One of the New Order members was able to break the lock of the door that led to the last floor of the fortress, but as soon as he opened it up, he was welcomed by a barrage of bullets. A small squad of Kobolose demons had been standing in wait, ready to kill the first one who dared to venture inside. Protego, a wizard, stood in front of his injured companion, blocking the bullets. Take those blue demons down quickly. Moody led the charge inside, shooting spells at the small demons. The Dementors flew away, only to regroup on the lower levels. The assault on the Azkaban fortress had officially begun. Huff, huff. Tonks had to lean against the wall to avoid falling, but her eyes were constantly scanning her surroundings. Without even noticing when it happened, she realized that she was now alone. She could still hear sounds of battle echoing in the distance, but the wizards and witches who had been fighting at her side for the past hour were no longer there. Dead, she had been so focused on avoiding getting killed after being ambushed by those nasty shadow demons that she even lost track of where she was. Tonks found herself at the entrance of a large chamber. The dining hall. It was very different from the cozy hall she remembered from the time she spent here as a newbie Auror. It almost felt like that was ages ago, but only a few months had passed since she lost her friend and was resigned to work with her old instructor. GRR, she gritted her teeth as she went to move her legs. Her eyes moved down and saw a deep cut on her right calf. She didn't even realize when that happened. The adrenaline must have kept her from feeling any pain, but that was passing now. Tonks took another healing potion from her belt. Shit, last one. After pouring half the contents of the flask on the wound and drinking the other half, she felt much better. The leg still ached, but she would be able to run if needed. Tonks began to make her way across the hall, very slowly and with extreme care. Her destination was only one floor away. What worried her was that, despite all the demons they had encountered so far, Harry Potter himself was yet to make an appearance. Meaning there was a good chance she would be the first one to encounter him. As much as she wanted to make him pay for what he had done to her in the past, Tonks was not arrogant enough to believe she had a chance of fighting the demon lord by herself. Just then, she heard a loud noise coming from the other side of the hall, where the kitchen was located. It sounded metallic, as if someone had knocked over a bunch of cooking utensils. Tonks gripped her wand firmly, and the moment she saw a small red figure emerging from the room, she fired. Tenebrae. Her piercing jinx went through the head of the unlucky imp, killing it instantly. The small red demons always moved in large groups, and as the first one died, the others let out a loud noise that resembled something akin to a human laugh. Something they had learned about imps was that they cared little for their comrades, and would often use each other as meat shields so they could reach their prey. Tonks saw a dozen more of those red little monsters come out running at full speed. If they surround me, I'm dead. She had to remind herself that she was alone. Her eyes shifted to the stairs she had just used to get here. There was no chance to make it across the hall, so she could only run back to where she came from. Ignis, she threw a barrage of fireballs at the wooden pieces of furniture that were scattered across the dining area. Defindo, when the imps were about to pass by the burning tables, she made them explode into 1,000 pieces. Tonks did not waste a second to see the effects of her magic, but was sure that she had gotten at least a few of them. Her legs moved as fast as possible, and she reached the stairs. By the sounds they made, she knew that the remaining imps were getting very close to her, but she had no time to look back. As soon as she reached the 4th level of the prison, and without turning her head around, she fired another spell. Bombarda. The cracking noises of the stone breaking apart were combined with the cries of the imps. Tonks knew that this would not be enough to collapse the entrance, as Azkaban's walls were all heavily enchanted to resist destruction. Only need a second. She made a sharp turn to the right and rushed straight for the nearest window. Without hesitation, she jumped outside, and this time she could see at least half a dozen imps jumping after her. One of the nasty creatures managed to latch onto her leg, but she had bigger concerns right now, as she was free-falling toward the rocky ground of the island. Tonks made use of her quick reaction to blast a spell in the opposite direction, propelling herself back against the building, and was barely able to use her left hand to reach one of the barred windows. "Ah, you bastard!" She looked down at the imp who was holding onto one of her boots and had used its long, sharp nails to dig into her flesh. "Get off!" Tonks used her other foot to stomp on the head of the creature, forcing it to release her and fall to its death. With the most immediate threat neutralized, she could return her attention to the window itself. Reducto, she had to apply a lot of power to her spell to affect one of the metallic bars, and it was enough to make her vision blurry. However, she was immediately rewarded by the sight of the bars breaking apart, giving her enough space to crawl back in. "Who are you?" Tonks was startled by the sudden voice asking her a question. When she moved her sight toward the sound, she finally found what she had been looking for. Chapter 107. "Susan, it's me, too," she gasped when she saw the state that Susan was in. The girl was sitting on the bed, without a single piece of clothing on her body, and there were visible bruises on her legs and arms. Tonks did not need much to guess what happened here, and felt a tremendous fury invading her body. She was well aware of how evil the demon lord was, but this still managed to shock her. "You can't be here," Susan told her. "No one can be here. Harry told me. He will punish me." "No one is going to punish you." Tonks walked closer to the girl. Luckily, she had been paying attention when Voldemort took the collar from Hermione and knew exactly what to do. Tonks didn't want to waste one more second and aimed her wand at the young girl. There was no point in explaining anything, as Susan was currently under the effects of a powerful compulsion. She first needed to free the girl before asking any questions. "Allah!" Susan began screaming and grasping at her neck. "Tusk!" Tonks clenched her teeth and did her best to avoid losing her focus. She knew this was a normal reaction, as Hermione had done the same. There was something in that collar that induced intense pain when someone attempted to remove it. Just one more reason to hate the monster who created them. "Come on!" Tonks saw the collar appear in view, and a few seconds later, it made a clicking noise as it fell from Susan's neck. The girl stopped screaming and collapsed onto the bed. Tonks hurried to check on her, Unfortunately, she didn't have any more healing potions to give her. "Susan, can you hear me?" "Erg," Susan groaned and opened her eyes again. This time there was clear emotion in them. Tonks. "Yes, it's me." Tonks tried to show her a reassuring smile. "Everything is going to be okay. I'm getting you out of this place." Susan looked down at herself and gasped loudly as she tried to cover her nakedness using her hands. "Please, don't look at me." Tonks used her wand to conjure a simple tunic and handed it to Susan. "Here, you can use this for the time being." Tears were falling from the girl's face as she placed the tunic over her bruised body. "Aunt Amelia, is she really? I remember." "SHHH, it's not your fault. We know what happened." Tonks's eyes were constantly scanning over the bedroom. Hermione had told them everything she could about the current Azkaban. That's how she knew that this was the main bedroom used by Harry himself, and it was not a place where they could stay for long. "Susan, I know you have been through a lot, but right now we must leave this place. It's too dangerous." "Have you killed Harry already?" Susan asked. Tonks could tell there was something wrong in her eyes. It wasn't just anger. There was something more profound in there. "Not yet. I don't think so, but we will very soon. We have brought a large arm." "You won't find him. He is not here," Susan interrupted her. "What do you mean, where is he?" Tonks looked surprised. Harry should have known they were preparing to invade Azkaban. How could he not be here? Was he hiding from them? "What about Luna? Is she in Azkaban?" "She is with him, I think." Susan avoided making direct eye contact with her. "Okay." Tonks was getting increasingly worried about the mental state of this girl. "I'm going to get you out of here." She could then send a message to her companions and inform them about Harry's absence. "Wait," Susan reacted. "Do you have some parchment?" "Parchment, what for?" Tonks looked confused. "I found out some important things that you must know. I will write them down." "You can do that later. This place is filled with demons, so W." "No," Susan exclaimed. "It must be now, before I forget." Tonks sighed. "Fine, but you have to be quick." Luckily, she was always carrying her small enchanted book used for communication. A small quill was attached to it for quick use. She handed it to the young girl, and this one got to writing immediately. Tonks had no choice but to wait patiently for 2 or 3 minutes as Susan continued to write several pages at a fast pace. The girl did not need to stop even for a second to think, meaning that everything she wanted to say must have already been at the front of her mind. Once she was done, Susan stood from the bed and walked to Tonks, handing her the small book. Tonks was about to suggest that they begin fleeing immediately, but some of the writing caught her attention. As Susan said, there was a lot of information in here. From Harry's habits, his arsenal of spells, his secret treasury in the basement, weak points for some of the demons, and much more. But what shocked Tonks the most was the detailed location of a secret hideout. North of London, in the countryside, Harry had a wooden cabin in the middle of a dense forest. "Susan, this is amazing with this. Wait, there was something else at the end. A magical circle in London?" Tonks gasped when she saw this. The demon lord had plans to sacrifice the entire metropolis with the use of a massive magical circle. "Hold on, don't tell me that this is the reason for his absence." Tonks felt her blood running cold. What if Harry had planned all of this? What if he used the day when all their forces were concentrated in Azkaban to carry on his plans? "Susan, what?" Tonks turned around but could not find the red-haired girl. "Susan, where are we?" It was then that Tonks caught a side glimpse of Susan Bones just as she jumped out of the window. "No!" Tonks screamed and rushed as fast as her legs allowed her to move. It was too late. By the time she poked her body outside, Susan was already hitting the sharp rocks at the base of the prison and falling into the ocean. From the moment her collar was removed, Susan had already made up her mind that she no longer wanted to live in this world. After sharing all the important information she had acquired, the girl did not hesitate before jumping out. During her last seconds of life, Susan smiled. She was finally free from the nightmare. Chapter 108. "Sir, the Dementors are retreating." Moody turned around and glanced through the small window at the top of the wall, just in time to see the shadowy creatures flying away. "They are giving up." He thought it was strange. Those creatures had been pestering them non-stop since they entered the prison. And now that they had finally made it to the 3rd floor, they simply left. "How are our forces holding up?" Moody asked. He wasn't sure how many men they had lost already, as they had to go their separate ways after venturing inside. Otherwise, they would risk hitting each other with their own spells due to their large numbers. Thus, the New Order army had been separated into several squads, each one with its own leader. For his part, Moody's squad had consisted of over 50 men. "We lost 32 men, sir." The wizard who spoke was barely holding on and had to lean against a nearby wall for support. Moody sighed as he glanced at his remaining men. "Take a moment to rest and patch your wounds." Losses were expected, everyone knew this. What concerned Moody was that they had yet to find the leader, as well as that powerful demon that Voldemort had encountered previously. So far, they had only dealt with the normal demons. Dreignaus, imps, kobolos with their annoying guns, some shadow demons here and there, as well as the constant harassment from the Dementors, which required them to have dedicated individuals continually cast Patronus charms to keep them away. It was exhausting, and after an hour of being attacked from all sides, they made it to the dining hall. It was then that Moody noticed something. There were signs of a battle having occurred here very recently. There were pieces of furniture broken everywhere, and some of it was still releasing smoke. He had initially thought that they were the first ones to get this far. Just as he was about to open his mouth to ask his men, Moody spotted a small Patronus construct making its way through a nearby window and flying toward him. "Sir," his men got nervous. "It's okay, I know this one." Moody recognized the small bunny as Tonks' Patronus. "It's a message." This was a less common way to use the charm, but it was very effective when trying to convey a message to someone nearby. As Moody listened to the recorded voice, his expression turned somber. After the Patronus delivered the complete message, it vanished into thin air. Alistair Moody turned toward his men. "We need tea." He suddenly stopped when he heard a large number of steps approaching. A few seconds later, Sirius, Wormtail, and Voldemort made their way into the dining hall. Following them were a few dozen of their squad members. However, Moody did not miss the fact that, just like his own squad, their numbers had been drastically diminished at this point. Sirius was able to force a smile when he saw him. Despite the hell that they had gone through, the man was happy to see one of his friends still alive. "Have you found him?" Voldemort wasted no time questioning him. "About that, I just received a message from Tonks," said Moody. "My cousin, where is she? Is she injured?" Sirius asked with clear concern for the girl, as she was the youngest in their group. "She said that the Demon Lord is not in Azkaban right now and urged me to find her in the main bedroom on the 2nd floor. I say we hurry." "She sounded in distress," Moody explained. "The boy is not here." Voldemort could not care less about Tonks or her distress. The only thing he wanted was to kill Harry Potter once and for all. "Let's go then," Sirius urged them. "Let's go find her." Moody turned to the other members of the Order. "Everyone who is too injured or tired to continue, stay here and recover. We don't know what we'll encounter on these last levels. If you don't feel ready, don't come." Voldemort was already walking ahead. "The main bedroom, right." "My lord, wait for me." Wormtail hurried to chase after him, as he did not want to be left alone with Sirius and Moody. "Huff, there." Sirius pointed at a large wooden door that could be seen at the end of the corridor. Moody groaned and placed a hand on his shoulder to cover the bleeding. On the way here, they had been ambushed by a dozen more of those nasty shadow demons, as well as hundreds of imps, who were especially tricky to avoid in the narrow corridors of the 2nd floor. As a result, they had lost most of their men and suffered grave injuries. Sirius was using a torn piece of his robes to cover a deep cut on his cheek, and Wormtail had lost his only remaining human hand. Voldemort was the only one who still looked mostly unharmed, but even the former Dark Lord was visibly exhausted at this point. "Tgthegood," Moody said, as he didn't think he could fight for much longer. As soon as Sirius opened the door, he found himself staring at his cousin Tonks, who was now pointing her wand at him. "Sirius," it took her a moment to recognize him. "Yep, that's me, your handsome cousin Sirius," he chuckled, maybe not so handsome anymore. You're hurt, Tonks rushed to look at his injuries. We're all hurt, Moody scoffed, but that can wait. Right, there is something urgent that you all need to see. Tonks didn't want to waste a moment and showed them the note that Susan had written. Moody, Voldemort, and Sirius all got closer so they could read it properly. Merlin, is this for real? Sirius was the first one to speak. A secret hideout, Voldemort muttered. He's planning on attacking London? Moody's face went pale. This was beyond anything that he could have imagined. London had over 7 million inhabitants, and it wasn't just Muggles this time. It included several magical communities, as well as the main commercial district of Diagon Alley. Voldemort's red eyes began to flicker. Looks like we've underestimated how far he was willing to go. Attacking a main metropolis meant shattering the status of secrecy. It would be impossible to cover an event like that from the Muggle masses. The existence of wizards would be revealed for sure this time. Chapter 109. After cleaning the remaining demons and making sure that Harry Potter was not currently inside Azkaban, the survivors of the battle gathered on the 3rd floor of the fortress. From the nearly 600 members of the New Order who had answered the call to attack Azkaban, less than 100 had survived the struggle, and many of them were in no shape to continue fighting. Tonks and a few others had brought what healing supplies they could find at the infirmary and began to give first aid to the injured. From the 12 envoys of the ICW, only 2 had perished during the intense battle. This could count as impressive, but for these elite wizards and witches, 2 dead among their members was something unforgivable. Especially when they didn't even find out the real responsible party behind all this. What? That can't be true. The German witch shouted at Sirius when he relayed the intel they had obtained. Let me see that note. Sirius gave her the piece of paper written by Susan Bones. We don't have time for this, the general shouted. If the boy is in London, then we should go there immediately. Now hold on, Moody turned to him. Our troops are tired and injured. Going in like this would just be suicide. General. Bella approached him. I will follow you anywhere. You can count on me as well. Me too. Some of his old followers grouped around the general and showed they were still loyal to the one they viewed as the true Dark Lord. Excuse me. Tonks finished placing some bandages on Moody's shoulder. I am no expert on this, but wouldn't a ritual like the ones he used before too, summon those monsters, be done at night? This made the general stop in his complaints. Typically, dark rituals are more effective under the moon instead of the sun. For one this big, Potter would want to maximize its effect as much as possible. See, Sirius said, it's not even midday yet. We can recover for a few hours, regroup, and then go to London to stop him. It's not a lot of time, but, Moody grasped his shoulder. Let's get the injured to St. Mungo's first, then we see. Wait a moment. The German witch interrupted what he was about to say. We are going to. Indeed, the French old wizard agreed. We lost 2 of our companions today. This offense will not go away until we make this maniac pay. It's not like we could ignore this situation in any case. Another member of the elite wizards said while pointing at the note. An attack like that on a city the size of London would unravel the magical world to the Muggles. I can imagine that what will follow will be a war with them. A war with the Muggles, Bella scoffed. What can those inferior creatures do? Don't be ridiculous, Bella, Sirius said. You have experience in your flesh how dangerous Muggle weapons are. Bella clenched her teeth as she involuntarily grasped at her face, where her missing eye was. The weapons from the blue demons are nothing, Tonks said. My father told me of Muggle weapons capable of destroying entire cities. The Death Eaters exchanged some glances. Even they couldn't really mock Muggle technology. They had all experienced how deadly their guns were. Even Voldemort couldn't deny it, as he had already died once to one of these weapons. Could that have been his intention from the beginning, to start a war with the Muggles, one that would end up destroying our world? Everyone turned to the person who had just spoken. No one would have expected the cowardly Wormtail to come up with that. That girl, Tonks muttered. Hermione Granger, she did say something along those lines. She said that Harry's goal was very simple. He just wants to kill all humans, magical or otherwise. Fantastic, the German witch groaned. A genocidal maniac. It's been a while since I've seen someone like that. Yes, but, the French wizard looked pensive. The last one didn't have an army of demons. He won't have much of an army at this point. We just killed thousands of those creatures, she responded. But who knows how many he had in total, the other man said. Numbers are not what's important, Voldemort muttered. He was now thinking about that large winged demon he saw at Hogwarts. It was not here, so it must mean that it's wherever Harry currently is. He was not concerned about the other demons. Once you knew how to deal with them, it was just a matter of time to destroy them. But that one demon did worry him. Nearly 2 hours later, a group of people was leaving a department store called Purge and Douse. Muggles walked past them, but no one paid attention to the oddly dressed individuals or the store itself, because there was an enchantment that made them act that way. This was the secret entrance to St. Mungo's hospital, but magical folk rarely used it. Moody looked around. We have 5 hours before sundown. This city is huge. Tonks didn't look too confident. Wouldn't the point me charm work? There are protections against that, Bella told her. Don't bother looking for just the boy, the German witch said. A ritual like the one he is planning, and on a scale like this, it would leave traces. What kind of traces? Sirius asked. If he is using a massive magical circle, the lines will emit a soft magical signature, the general told him. Just pay attention to any strange sensations while walking around. The old French wizard said. The Muggles will not notice it until it becomes active, but we should be able to perceive something strange when passing by one of these lines. We should explore the city separately. That will allow us to cover more ground, Moody suggested. How do we communicate with each other if we find something? One of the foreign wizards asked. Oh, I know. Tonks took out her magical notebook and began tearing pages off. We will use this. Chapter 110. Sirius was walking through the center of London. The notice me not charm that he applied would prevent any Muggles from taking notice of his presence, and so he would work unencumbered. Erg, he rubbed his cheek again. The wound had healed, but it was still aching a lot, which made him wonder if this was because the nails of that shadow demon had caused it, or perhaps it was his increasing frustration that was causing it. His black eyes looked up at the sky, and despite having lost track of how long he had been walking around this massive city, he could tell that they were running out of time, given the fact that the sun was starting to disappear behind the tall buildings. In an hour or so, it would be nighttime and perhaps too late. Sirius pulled out the enchanted page that Tonks had given them. Still blank, huh? So far, no one had found anything. Come on, where are you? It was after walking for a few more minutes that Sirius found something that caught his attention. To his right, a beautiful cathedral could now be seen. It was very old, but also one of the most famous places in the center of London. Even someone who had grown up in the magical world knew about St. Paul's Cathedral. When he was just a few dozen feet away from the staircase that led into the old church, Sirius finally felt something strange. It was a mild, but also oppressive feeling, and he knew immediately that this was being caused by black magic. As someone who grew up in the House of Black, he had experienced this feeling many times in his life while wandering around that house. The more he approached the building, the stronger the feeling got. As his feet touched the first step, Sirius began to experience a sense of nausea and was forced to back off. Looking back at the cathedral, he realized that he may have found the very center of the magical formation, and not just one of its connecting lines. Thinking about it for a second, using a church as the epicenter of a magical circle meant for the summoning of demons was a special kind of evil that a monster like Ecrisdes Scarvok would find amusing or even poetic. Sirius took a few steps back and began writing in the enchanted paper, relaying the message to everyone. St. Paul's Cathedral, I found the center of the formation. Hurry. Several minutes passed, and Sirius could not perceive any unusual movements inside the building. Muggles were still coming and going. A tour guide came outside while a large group of people followed behind and announced the end of the visit, while another one informed some tourists that they were near closing time. It was getting late, in more than one sense. Sirius. He felt a tap on his shoulder, and turned around to find his cousin Tonks looking at him. You found him, huh? Tonks moved her eyes to the cathedral. My mom brought me here when I was little. Can you feel it? Asked Sirius. Tonks nodded solemnly. Something unpleasant. It gets much stronger if you reach the steps, Sirius said. The others arrived in quick succession over the next few minutes and gathered around the plaza before the cathedral. Yes, this is definitely the center. Voldemort walked up to the steps before remaining still. He must be here then. A wand appeared in his hand. Wait, what about the Muggles? If we start fighting here? Tonks looked at them with concern. I understand, but, Moody spoke, we don't have a lot of time to spare. If the circle becomes active, it may be too late to save them. He didn't want to say it outright, but a few casualties would be a tolerable collateral damage compared to losing an entire metropolis of 7 million people. The Muggles are leaving the building already, the German witch said. We should go in before they close the doors, an old wizard commented. Sirius glanced at his companions. They had started this battle with a massive army. Right now, there are only a handful of them left. Just 4 members of the former Order of the Phoenix, with the addition of the General and Bellatrix Lestrange, as well as the 10 remaining members of those elite foreign wizards. Almost everyone else had been too injured or too exhausted to join them, and they could not wait any longer. The Demon Lord had likely been expecting this situation already. This was why he chose the day of the attack on Azkaban to perform the ritual. If not, then it was a terribly convenient coincidence for him. Let's go inside. Place some protections on yourselves. The German witch walked toward the steps as a Muggle dressed as a security guard was starting to close the doors. He seemed to notice her approach. Sorry, miss, visiting hours are over. You'll have to return tomorrow. Oh, it's no problem. She flicked her wand with extreme dexterity and hit the guard with a spell. I actually work here, remember. The Muggle looked at her with an expression of confusion, but eventually nodded. Ah, yes, sorry. It's okay, you can leave now. I will close the door, the witch said with a warm smile on her face. Once the guard left, she gestured for them to hurry inside. They were all under the effects of the Notice Me Not charm, but this was a very mild piece of magic, and if they called too much attention to themselves, they would still be noticed. Once they were all inside the cathedral, the witch locked the door behind them and placed some protections so no one could open it by accident. The unpleasant sensation that Sirius had felt before was extremely strong now, and it appeared to be growing stronger by the second. We don't have much time, Voldemort said, grasping his wand firmly in his hand. I think he is already activating the circle. Chapter 111. I don't feel too good. Tonks was struggling to keep her balance. It felt like suddenly being deep underwater, with all that pressure being added to her body. Sirius and Hestia weren't doing that much better, but Moody and the more veteran wizards could hold their own and continue moving. We must find the source and stop it. This oppressive feeling is being caused by the activation of the circle, the German witch said. The main chamber of the cathedral was massive, and it also appeared to be completely empty. Voldemort glanced upwards. It's up there, the source. Then what are we waiting for? Bella held her wand up. Let's just blow up this entire place. Don't be reckless. The French wizard got in front of her. You could cause a reaction that will end up killing us all. To activate a circle the size of London, the energy source must be massive. Moody reacted to hearing this and realized something important. Of course, that's why he took that from Hogwarts. What are you talking about? The German witch asked. The magical crystal was stolen during his last visit. Now I know what he wanted to use it for. Moody turned to Bella. They are right. If you hit the crystal with a spell, the whole thing could blow up and then we all die. Voldemort began walking towards the stairs. Let's stop wasting time. I'm going up there. Just as he was about to reach the set of stone stairs on one side of the chamber, Voldemort felt a sudden wave of heat and moved aside by pure instinct. A second later, the stairs exploded, sending pieces everywhere. My lord, Bella exclaimed. Careful! The French wizard moved in front of the group and created a shield to protect them. A moment later, it was hit by a red projectile and shattered, sending the old wizard flying. It was then that they saw the source of the attack and a figure descending from above. A large humanoid creature with great black wings. It was smiling while glancing down at them. "I am very sorry, but I cannot let you interrupt," the demon said in a calm tone. "That's him," Voldemort glared at the demon. "That's the one I saw." "By Merlin, this is a high-rank demon." The German witch was staring at Abaddon with shock on her face. "That madman brought something like this into our world." "We're doomed," someone else said. "How dare you attack my lord?" Bella stepped forward and aimed her wand at Abaddon. "Avada Kedavra." With little effort, the demon batted the spell away with one of its wings. "Crucio," Bella shouted. This time, Abaddon vanished in a cloud of smoke, allowing the curse to pass through the spot he had been occupying. Bella. Sirius had to fight against the oppressive pressure to try to warn her when he saw the demon appear behind her. Abaddon moved too quickly for anyone to react and drove his entire fist into Bella's back, coming out at the front. The witch let out some gargling sounds as her lungs were filled with blood, and she was unable to speak. Loud gasps were heard when they all saw that Abaddon was holding Bella's still beating heart in his hand. "Hey ha ha," the demon pulled his arm out of her body, and this one collapsed on the floor, already dead. Then, the demon laughed while looking at the heart in his hands. "Magic or not, humans are always so fragile. Just take one small part out of their bodies and they die." "Attack," the German witch commanded. All 10 of the foreign wizards began launching a barrage of spells directed at the demon. "Hey," Moody pointed at Voldemort, who had been standing still and looking at his fallen follower. Bella had been his most loyal one since the beginning, and now she was dead. Even for someone as devoid of emotion as Voldemort, it was impossible to ignore it completely. He felt anger rising up. "Don't," Moody stopped Voldemort when he saw that he was about to go after the demon. "Go up there. You are the only one who can face the demon lord. We'll keep this demon entertained for as long as we can." Voldemort hesitated for a second, but then realized that Moody was right. This was their best chance. Killing the high-ranking demon was not their main goal after all. His body rose into the air and flew, until he reached the upper part of the steps that had survived the destruction. Abaddon turned his attention to Voldemort when he saw what the man was doing. The demon pointed at him, and from the tip of his nails, a red ball of energy manifested. However, before he could shoot, he was interrupted by a small animal made of pure white light. "Erg, this thing again," Abaddon frowned. The Patronus charm was not powerful enough to cause him any real damage, but the positive emotion within the spell did give him a very unpleasant feeling, and it had been just enough to distract him. By the time he was able to throw his attack, Voldemort had already climbed to the next floor. "Oh well, I tried." Abaddon didn't seem too upset, as he knew better than these humans how dangerous his summoner was. "I'll take care of the rest of you then." Instead of chasing after Voldemort, he turned his attention to the rest. "See, can we win?" Tonks muttered. She was starting to grow accustomed to the pressure, at least barely enough to move around. Moody did not turn to look at her, as he didn't want to take his eyes off the demon. "Do you really want me to tell you?" The 10 veteran wizards who had been selected by the ICW for their magical prowess had been throwing everything they had at the demon, and this one didn't seem even a bit affected. "Let's hope he has better luck than us," Moody muttered. Their only chance now lay in the hands of Lord Voldemort. Chapter 112. When Voldemort reached the highest floor of the cathedral, he pushed open a large wooden door and found himself inside what looked like a storage area. "Oh, it's you again. Don't you know when it's time to give up?" Voldemort's eyes shifted to the center of the room, where he found Harry staring back at him. Behind the boy was a large crystal, almost twice his size. However, at this point, the crystal seemed to have lost all its luster, becoming gray and dull. And just as he was about to say something, it began to crumble into dust. "Yes, you are too late," Harry stated the obvious for him. The magical circle had already absorbed all the magic from the crystal and become active. From here on, the circle will begin feeding on the inhabitants of the city. Harry pointed outside the window. "Can you hear their screams? It has begun already." Voldemort did indeed hear the screams, but made no comment on it. "Really? I thought that you, of all people, would appreciate or at least understand what I'm doing," said Harry with a cruel smirk on his face. "Some idiots were so afraid of you that they wouldn't even say your name." Voldemort frowned. "What I understand is that you have gone too far. I hated Muggles, but what you are doing will shatter our society as well." Harry raised an eyebrow. "Does it look like I care about that? You are all going to end up the same, dead." With a swift flick of his wand, Harry cast 3 spells in succession. They were not too potent, but if Voldemort was hit by any of them, it would make things very difficult for him. A shielding charm was created to block them. "HMPH, you are not as good as you think." Voldemort went on the offensive and threw a powerful curse at Harry. "Exalvo Horribilis." This one twisted his body to avoid the sickly yellow orb. The curse ended up hitting the stone wall behind him, and it started to dissolve very quickly. "I'm not done." Voldemort was confident that his combat skills were superior and that he would not lose in this closed-up space. He moved his wand towards himself, and some of the liquid from his curse that was stuck to the wall was pulled back. Harry was caught off guard by the maneuver, and the curse ended up touching his robes, so he had to remove them immediately. Voldemort narrowed his eyes when he noticed that Harry was carrying 2 holsters with guns on his sides. "Tisk, still depending on those Muggle weapons, how pathetic." Instead of getting angry, Harry chuckled. "You wizard folk are the pathetic ones, thinking that you're all superior, but there is much to learn from those Muggles. You see," Harry's eyes became sharp, "they have become very efficient at killing each other." Just then, Voldemort heard a metallic noise right behind him. This was a sound he had not forgotten. The last time he heard it, he died soon after. Boom! The hand grenade exploded, sending sharp pieces of metal everywhere. However, this time, Voldemort was prepared for such an attack. A full-body Protego was immediately raised to cover his entire body and shield him from harm. He then saw the shadowy hand returning to the wall after having dropped the explosive. "I should have expected it. You still have more of those demons." "Yes, you should have." Harry had pulled one of his guns and fired it at him. Voldemort blocked the bullets by creating a smaller Protego charm on his left hand so he could keep his wand free. Useless! He cast several spells in quick succession. Disarming charm, tripping jinx, cutting hex aimed at his legs, and an obfuscating jinx to cover his view. While Harry was busy dealing with this, Voldemort turned around and used a powerful Lumos charm to illuminate the entire room in a bright light, thus preventing the shadow demons from appearing. Voldemort spotted almost a dozen of the creatures scrambling to move away from him. "Your tricks no longer work on me." His red eyes met Harry's. "I am the superior wizard." Harry didn't seem too preoccupied. "Sure, keep the title, it won't save you anyway." His wand was pointed right above Voldemort. The former Dark Lord spotted a pitch-black circle manifesting in the air. Having a bad feeling about this, he rushed to one side, and just a second later, something massive came out of the circle. The dreadnought landed on its feet and immediately went on the offensive, swinging its weapon at Voldemort. But this was not all. A dozen imps also emerged from the circle before this one closed off. "Damn you!" Voldemort was becoming increasingly frustrated. With the help of the demons, it was going to be challenging to get a clean shot at Harry. And this one didn't even seem interested in dueling. In fact, Voldemort got the impression that Harry was merely wasting time. The ritual, he realized. Just as he and Harry were fighting, the magical circle was already killing the population of London. Their vitality would then be used to continue empowering the magical circle, thus completing the ritual. The function of the crystal had merely been to kickstart the process, and now it was progressing on its own. And it was not going to stop until it ran out of fuel, which in this case was the 7 million humans living in the city. As he avoided the bite of an imp, Voldemort heard screams coming from below. This tiny distraction would cost him greatly. Bang! Erg! Voldemort felt a painful sensation in his leg. "Got you!" The amused voice of Harry was then heard. Voldemort had been dealing with too many enemies at the same time, allowing Harry to find a hole in his defenses and immediately take advantage of it. "We lost." As frustrated as it was to admit it, Voldemort knew that it was the truth. They had failed to stop the magical circle from activating. London was done for, and if they didn't escape soon, they would be done as well. It didn't matter if his magical skills were superior, when his opponent had no qualms about using their superior numbers to overwhelm him. Bombarda, after having made up his mind, Voldemort opted for a quick exit and destroyed the floor. Chapter 113. The roof of the main chamber was shattered by Voldemort's spell, making all the demons fall to their deaths, while the wizard used his magic to levitate slightly and slow his fall. Voldemort shifted his attention to the scene in the room. The corpses of those elite wizards and witches from the ICW were now littering the chamber of the cathedral. They seemed to have put up quite a fight, given all the destruction that could be seen around. However, the demon itself was still seemingly uninjured and in high spirits. Tonks and Moody were injured but still alive, while Sirius was holding the body of that woman called Hestia Jones. Voldemort was now sure that his initial assessment of this demon was very much correct. That creature was on a whole other level, and even those expert wizards were unable to do much against him. "Are you leaving already? You still haven't seen the best part." Voldemort heard the voice of Harry, trying to taunt him from above. Clenching his teeth, Voldemort moved to where the survivors were still standing. "We have to leave," he told them as he grabbed Sirius by his robes. "No, I won't leave her." Sirius complained and struggled in his grasp, but had no more strength to fight back. Moody pushed Tonks away from him and spoke in a tired voice. "Go, I'll buy you a few seconds. Don't bother with the portkeys or apparition. They won't work properly while inside the circle, and you will likely die if you try. Just run." "No, I won't." "Now is not the time for this," Moody screamed at her. "At least follow the last order I give you." He aimed his wand at her and used a spell to send her flying towards the door before turning to the demon and using a Patronus charm, which seemed to be the only thing that had any effect on him. While being dragged away by Voldemort, Sirius glanced towards the second floor of the cathedral, through the hole that he had just made, and spotted the figure of Harry standing there, looking at their plight with an expression of amusement. Abaddon batted the Patronus construct with the back of his hand, like it was an annoying insect, and then aimed his finger at Moody. A crimson sphere of light was produced and shot at the man, who was too exhausted to even attempt to move aside. "Ah!" Moody screamed when Abaddon's attack began to consume his flesh. For a brief moment, the light of Moody's spell illuminated the entire chamber, a defiant flash of silver that reflected against the marble pillars and broken glass. The scent of smoke, blood, and burning magic filled the air. Voldemort turned his head for an instant, his cold gaze unreadable. There was something almost human in it, recognition, perhaps, or reluctant respect. Tonks covered her mouth, tears blurring her vision as Moody's last shout echoed through the cathedral. The light faded, and silence reclaimed the battlefield. "What a bore! None of these humans could give me an interesting fight." Abaddon scoffed as he watched Moody die with his cold eyes. Harry jumped down into the chamber and used a featherweight charm to slow his fall. "You could have stopped them from escaping," he pointed out. At this point, Voldemort, Tonks, and Sirius were more than exhausted. For a being like Abaddon, it would have been very simple to catch them and kill them. The demon shrugged. "This is your war, not mine. If you want them dead, go chase them." The demon never showed much interest in fighting humans, and had only done so now because it was in his own interest for the ritual not to be interrupted. But he would not do more than what was strictly necessary. Harry, of course, already knew this. He was probably the only human who could come close to understanding how this demon thought. He wasn't even that annoyed that those three had escaped. That way, they could see what he had done with the city. "You think they will like it?" Harry asked. Abaddon began to laugh. "They are going to love it. Today, humanity will get a taste of what true horror is." Harry started to walk towards the doors. "This is going to make them much easier to manipulate." "Scared animals are very predictable," Abaddon agreed. "Still, I have to say that I am impressed with the results. Never thought that something like this would be possible." "That's because no one has tried it before." Harry kicked one of the wooden gates, and it fell off its hinges, revealing the gruesome scenario outside. Despite it being nighttime, everything was bathed in an intense red light. That's because no human has ever been crazy enough to do so, Abaddon pointed out as he watched from his spot. Harry walked outside and smiled, feeling content with what he had accomplished. The screams of the people who used to live here had mostly died down, but the city had completely transformed into something terrifying. With the massive sacrifice of 7 million souls, Harry had not just summoned demons into this world. Instead, he brought a piece of the netherworld here and fused it with what remained of London. Now this was a truly hellish place. The buildings and houses were torn apart, the streets were covered in fire, and in the sky one could already see some ugly winged creatures flying around, looking for prey to hunt. A large number of demons had also crossed over to this side, and were now the inhabitants of the metropolis. Beautiful indeed, Harry said. Abaddon stood at his side. I do prefer the colder parts of the netherworld, but this one fits more the image that humans have made up for their stories. Yes, I can't wait to see the news spreading out. The magical world can no longer be hidden from the rest of society, said Harry. Soon, those foolish humans will arm their deadliest weapons and get ready to use them. A modern witch hunt, if you will. Chapter 114. What is happening? Tonks said in panic. After leaving the cathedral, they ran for several minutes through the streets of the city. At first, they thought that the release of magical energies from the ritual had caused some fires in the buildings and houses, but they soon started to realize that something much worse had happened here. There were cracks on the ground from where a nauseating gas was coming out. The gas would then catch on fire, burning everything around it. They could hear the sounds of creatures nearby, but couldn't see them. And up in the sky, there was something resembling a full moon, except it was emitting a strong red light that bathed the entire city, giving it a very eerie look. There were no humans in sight, and yet they would often hear painful moans coming from beneath the ground. What happened here? What did the demon lord do? Sirius asked again. Even Voldemort was not too sure at this point. A sacrificial ritual of 7 million people is something unprecedented, he said in a somber tone. Its effects could only be guessed at best. Then guess, Tonks said. Voldemort glared around the nightmarish place and drew a conclusion based on Harry's previous actions. Some ancient tomes speak about the possible origin of demons. Some claim that they all come from a different world or dimension, called the Netherworld. A ritual like this one may have been powerful enough to bring a piece of that world into ours, or perhaps even to alter the fabric of reality itself. You mean like, hell, this is hell? Tonks looked horrified at the mere idea. SHH, wait, Sirius exclaimed. I think we are being surrounded. They kept hearing rustling noises as if something had been moving close by, but they were all sure these were not humans. Where are we even going? Asked Tonks. We left all of our troops at St. Mungo's, but... She didn't want to say it, but looking at the condition of the city, it was not likely for anyone there to still be alive. But even worse than that, the Ministry of Magic as well as Diagon Alley were also inside London. Should we go to the Ministry to check? Sirius wondered if someone could still be there. What do you think? Voldemort asked while trying to contain his rising anger. If the situation were different, he would have already killed these two. But right now, he could not afford to spare anyone capable of holding a wand. We are going to Hogwarts, Voldemort finally said. It's the safest place right now. That would be nice, but do we really need to walk out of here first? There are like 20 miles to the border. Moody said that we cannot use apparition or our portkeys. Tonks didn't look like she could walk that distance, much less run while fighting demons at the same time. He was right, Voldemort confirmed. Can't you feel it in the air? There's this bizarre presence. At first, I thought it was a high concentration of magic caused by the ritual, but it's something else. You mean like something that came from the demon world? Sirius asked. We don't know how our own magic would react to it, so we'd better keep it to a minimum, Voldemort suggested. Hold on, Sirius had a sudden idea. Let's go to the Leaky Cauldron. We can get flying brooms from Diagon Alley. If they work, we can leave this place in no time. Voldemort seemed to consider it for a moment. His red eyes darted around. The noises were getting louder, and it was clear that something was following them. The chances of leaving the city without being attacked were very low, and none of them were in good shape. They had come here after fighting an army of demons in Azkaban, with just a short rest in between. Everyone had a limit. "We have to run. They saw us," Voldemort said, glancing up. A dozen flying creatures were now coming their way. They were different from all the demons they had seen so far, and they didn't want to stay to find out what these could do. "Close the door, hurry," Tonks screamed. Huff, huff. Sirius pushed the door shut, and Voldemort placed a chain in front to prevent it from opening. They had only to run 10 blocks to get here, and were chased all the way by those flying demons, as well as others running across the flames, but they couldn't see them clearly. "There is no one here either," Tonks said. They all knew that the ritual Harry used would turn human bodies into dust, but they had a sliver of hope that magical folk were somewhat resistant to it, and perhaps they could find a few survivors. Their group had only avoided the effects because they were at the very center of the circle. It was the only safe place to be. "We should have warned them all," Sirius lamented. Voldemort scoffed. "If we had wasted time doing that, we would be dead as well. Besides, do you think they would have believed you and run away?" Sirius knew that it was true. They barely made it to the cathedral before the circle became active. Had they tried to come here first or write messages, they would have been too late. Still, "Moody told me that he sent a message to the ministry while we were at the hospital," said Tonks. "Maybe the minister and a few others are still alive." "I guess we'll find out soon enough," Voldemort said as he opened the wall that led into the alley. "It's the same," Sirius frowned when he saw that the previously beautiful Diagon Alley had turned into a ruined mess with fire everywhere. "Come on, let's just hope that a few brooms have survived the ordeal," Voldemort urged them to move. Chapter 115. McGonagall was pacing around her office relentlessly. "Where are they? Why haven't we heard anything yet?" Pomona Sprout was sitting on a sofa on the other side of the room, watching her friend with concern. "Minerva, you have to calm down. You have been pacing nonstop for hours. At this rate." "How can I calm down?" McGonagall snapped. "I should have been there." Pomona glanced at her with shock. "For what? The attack on Azkaban? Are you crazy? You are the school headmistress, not an Auror or a soldier." Last they heard, the assault on the former prison had not gone well. They lost most of the troops and were unable to find Harry Potter. Sirius had taken a moment to send her a message when they were at St. Mungo's. He mentioned that Harry was planning something in London and they were going to stop him, but it had been several hours since she received that message, and there was still no more news. The headmistress was now fearing the worst, that everyone was dead. She then had an idea and walked to the fireplace before grabbing a handful of flu powder. "Where are you going?" Pomona became startled when she saw this. "I am going to call the ministry. I'm sure Shacklebolt must have heard something already." She threw the dust into the flames and waited for a moment. Ministry of Magic reception. The green flames appeared for a bit, but then vanished. McGonagall stared at the fireplace in confusion. "What happened?" Pomona noticed something strange and stood up, walking to her side. "I don't know. I called the ministry, but the flue didn't connect. The flame just disappeared." "Let me see." Pomona repeated McGonagall's actions, grabbing a fistful of flue dust and throwing it into the fireplace before calling the Ministry of Magic. Once more, the green flames went away after a few seconds. "It's like the flue network has been disconnected," Pomona said. McGonagall wanted to say that it was impossible, but a dark thought invaded her mind. What if the ministry had been attacked by the demon lord? "Headmistress," they heard a sudden voice calling for her, as well as a loud banging on the door. McGonagall had purposely left the gargoyle stairs open, so she could be warned quickly if anything were to happen. "Hagrid," she recognized the loud voice immediately. "Come in." Huff, the half-giant, walked inside while breathing with difficulty, as if he had been running for a while. "Headmistress, you, the minister." Huff. Hagrid, calm down. McGonagall found it ironic that she was now the one saying this. Did something happen to the minister? Did he send an owl? Could this be related to the flaw in the flue network? She wondered. "The minister is here, Great Hall," Hagrid managed to say between breaths. Pomona and McGonagall exchanged a look. "We better go see for ourselves," Pomona suggested. It seemed like taking the information from the tired man would be a much longer process. "Stay here and rest," McGonagall said to Hagrid. "We'll go see what happened." The two women rushed to the Great Hall, and after having to run up 7 sets of stairs, they weren't in much better shape than Hagrid himself. "What is going on here?" McGonagall asked. There was a loud commotion in the hall. Classes were currently suspended, so students would spend their days wandering around the castle, and right now, most of them appeared to be in the Great Hall. Something was going on near the entrance gates on the other side, but the headmistress was unable to see what it was because there were too many students in the way. She and Pomona had to push everyone aside as they passed to reach the front. "Okay, that's enough. Move." McGonagall had to use an enhancement charm on her voice so people would listen. The few remaining students got out of her way, and she was finally able to see what it was. Right at the entrance of the hall, there was a group of adults sitting on the floor. They all looked to be injured in some way and completely exhausted. It took McGonagall a moment to realize that all these people were from the Ministry of Magic, and that the person at the center was none other than the minister himself. McGonagall gasped. "Kingsley!" She had to step over a young woman who had collapsed to reach her old friend. "What happened to you all?" Minerva, Shacklebolt lifted his eyes to look at her. It's over, Erg." "What do you—" McGonagall's eyes opened wide when she spotted a large bleeding gash on his belly. She turned around to the other professors who were nearby. "Call Madame Pomfrey immediately and get the students back in their common rooms. Now." Her voice resounded all over the Great Hall. No one dared to disobey the headmistress right now, so they all got moving. In a few minutes, the hall was clear of students, and Madame Pomfrey was making her way to them, carrying a large bag of medical supplies. She first attended to the minister, before turning her attention to the others. After receiving first aid and drinking a blood-replenishing potion, Shacklebolt looked much better. McGonagall noticed that Pomfrey skipped over a few of the people lying on the floor. She was about to question this when she realized that those people were already dead. "Kingsley, what in Merlin's name happened at the ministry? Did the demons attack it?" McGonagall asked. The minister shook his head. His eyes showed nothing but despair. "It wasn't just the Ministry of Magic." What do you mean?" McGonagall looked confused. "It's London, it's all gone," Shacklebolt exclaimed. Chapter 116. At the stern request of Madame Pomfrey, McGonagall was not allowed to continue her conversation until everyone was taken to the infirmary and the minister was given proper care. Once Shacklebolt had been set up on one of the beds and the nurse moved to attend to the others, McGonagall approached him for further explanation on what he had said before. "What did you mean by gone?" McGonagall noticed how defeated he looked. She had never seen this man so devastated before. Shacklebolt took a moment to calm down and get his thoughts together, but the headmistress could tell that he didn't really want to talk about it. Still, he managed to push through and told her the full story about what happened in London. How he received a message from Moody around midday, warning him of a potential danger and advising him to leave the premises of the city. Shacklebolt was not one to run away from danger, but a warning like this from someone like Moody was not something to take lightly, so he made preparations. And it was a good thing that he did, because otherwise he would have died along with the rest. He put together a small group that consisted of his secretary, guards, and a few other assistants. They were flying over the city with their brooms when everything began. We saw a magical circle appear on the ground. It was massive, covering the entirety of London. Soon after, the screams began to be heard. Everyone beneath us was dying. "Merlin, you don't mean that he did the same thing as in those other villages, right?" McGonagall asked with dread, being fully aware of how things ended in those villages. The minister nodded. It was something out of a nightmare. Millions of people were dying, the ground cracked open, and fire started to emerge, setting the streets and nearby buildings ablaze. Then, as the screams died down, they started to appear. "Demons," McGonagall muttered with trembling lips. Once more the minister nodded. "Ugly things, monsters, some of them came from beneath, from those cracks on the ground. Others seemed to appear out of nowhere in the sky and attacked us." "Oh, that's why." McGonagall didn't want to finish that sentence, but it was obvious that these flying demons were responsible for their injuries. We had to flee from there, or we would have died as well. I couldn't do anything. All those people. Shacklebolt was clenching his fists with enough force to draw blood. McGonagall placed her hands on top of his as an empathetic gesture. This is not your fault. Something then occurred to the headmistress. Going by Moody's and Sirius messages, they knew what was going to happen and went to stop it. Obviously, they were unable to do so. Any news on Moody and the rest? She asked. The minister was about to answer when the door of the infirmary opened up, and several people rushed inside. We need help here. It was Hagrid who pushed the door open, carrying someone in his arms. Sirius, McGonagall immediately recognized that patch of black hair and the beard. Behind Hagrid were some of the other professors, and they were helping Tonks and Voldemort, although the last one didn't seem too happy about needing the help. Pomfrey was already incredibly busy, but she did not say a word of complaint and instead hurried to attend to the wounded. Tonks and General. The headmistress glanced at them before shifting her gaze to the door, expecting to see more people coming inside. But no one else came. That's it, no, that can't be, she thought with increasing dread. When the new order was formed, they became almost 1,000 people strong, and most of them had departed the day prior to launch a massive attack on Azkaban. Now, from all of those men and women, only 3 had returned alive. She had little hope even for the injured ones at St. Mungo's or those stationed at the Ministry of Magic and Diagon Alley. If what the minister had said was true, then everyone in London was already dead, and their souls had been used as fuel to power that demonic ritual. For their magical society, London was by far the most important place. That's where their largest magical dwellings were located. Harry Potter had managed to wipe them all out in one move. Tonks turned to look at her and noticed the despair in her eyes. I'm sorry, headmistress, we failed. Voldemort said nothing, but instead walked to one of the empty beds and collapsed on top. He would never admit it, but he had reached his limit long ago and had only been moving by will alone. The headmistress noticed the grim mood in the infirmary and wished she could say some words of encouragement. But no matter how much she thought about it, none came up. At the very least, they were still alive, and Hogwarts was relatively safe for now. She was only glad that she decided not to send the students home after what transpired on the first day of school. What happened to Moody? The minister asked. Tonks shook her head while tears appeared on her face. He bought us some time to escape. If it wasn't for him, no one would have returned. Are you all that's left of the new order? Shacklebolt looked down in defeat. I'm afraid so, Tonks responded. And that monster is still out there alive, Hagrid commented, thinking about what Harry had become as he looked down at the state Sirius was in, unsure if the man was going to see another day. The Demon Lord is not the only one we should be worried about right now, then, the minister said. Are you referring to the Muggles? McGonagall asked. Of course. One of the most important Muggle cities in the world has just been destroyed with magic. There is no hiding this. The statute of secrecy has been broken. Knowing the nature of the Muggles, there is going to be yet another war to fight. Chapter 117. The minister's fears would be proven true over the next few days. As everyone recovered from their injuries at Hogwarts, they would also read the Muggle newspapers that they managed to collect. Every morning, Hagrid would get on his flying bike and visit some city so they could gain a bit of information about what was going on in the world. Obviously, they couldn't use the Prophet, as their building had been in London, meaning that every reporter was already dead. Besides, right now, they were more interested in what the Muggles were doing. Inside a quiet country house in Buckinghamshire. You knew about this? An angry old man dressed in military garb slammed his hands on the table, glaring at the person in front of him. Why was I not informed? The Prime Minister sighed. Only a few selected people knew about their existence. Was General Williams one of them? The old man asked. Indeed, unfortunately, the minister didn't need to finish the sentence, as they all knew what happened to everyone stationed in London on that day. But I assure you I had no idea they were going to do something like this. The minister had heard news about the unrest among the magical population caused by the rise of another Dark Lord. It had only been a sheer coincidence that he was not in his London office during the attack. Otherwise, he would have suffered the same fate as everyone else. The current general did not have a hard time believing the minister's words, as his own family had been in London at the time and were all dead now. The man had lost more than most already. Thinking about this caused the general to calm his anger a little bit. Okay, fine. What are we going to do now? Now, the minister's eyes hardened as steel. We fight back, get the army ready. A smile appeared on the general's face. This was exactly what he had been waiting for. I would like to know everything I can about this enemy we are fighting. These wizards, what can they do? Unfortunately, this is something they had kept a secret from us. I do know that they can hide their houses by using their magic, and they can also delete people's memories. This is how they had remained undetected for so long. The general frowned. That is concerning. He didn't care all that much about their firepower, as that was something they could compete with by using their own weapons. If they can use their magic to manipulate our minds, erase our memories, or make us see things that are not there, that would be much harder to deal with. We do have one massive advantage, though, the minister then said. Oh, and what would that be? Their community is extremely small. Only a few thousand in number, their largest communities were stationed within London. The war they are waging against themselves has already wiped out the majority of their population. We only have to find the remaining ones, the minister explained. I see, the general responded. Very well, leave it to me. We will find those freaks and wipe them all out. They are looking for us. Sirius dropped the paper on his bed. They are trying to find every magical settlement, probably this school as well. The Muggle First Minister knew about the existence of Hogwarts, but not its location. There were also many protections set in place that would prevent Muggles from approaching it. Still, other communities were not going to be so lucky. Do you think they will actually attack us? Tonks asked as she left a tray of food next to Sirius's bed. Why wouldn't they? They all blame us for what happened to London and all those other Muggle villages. The Muggles probably think we are monsters. Tonks' expression sank. I'm scared. The door of the infirmary opened, and someone walked inside. What are we going to do? Tonks wondered. What we are going to do, Voldemort interjected, is finish what we started. We have to kill Potter. Demon Lord, Sirius corrected. And that wouldn't solve things with the Muggles. They blame us for everything. There will be time to negotiate with the Muggles later on, when we have the actual culprit, Voldemort said. You know, he is making a lot of sense, Tonks felt the need to add. If we can prove that all this chaos was caused by a single wizard and his demons, maybe we can find a way to make peace with the Muggles. It was too late to hide their existence from the rest of the population, but perhaps they could learn to coexist peacefully if they could clear the misunderstanding. Okay, let's say that we can do that, Sirius said. Do you want to organize another attack on Azkaban? With what troops? Other than ourselves, we will have the 24 men that were stationed at the school, Voldemort commented. That won't be nearly enough, Sirius frowned. The last time they had over 500, it was still an incredibly tough fight, where they ended up losing almost 2/3 of their numbers. What about the ICW? Shouldn't they be sending us more help? Tonks sighed. The headmistress and the Minister of Magic talked with some of their members, but everyone is currently busy with the political crisis with the Muggles. The threat that the Demon Lord poses has been deemed secondary. Until the war with the Muggle governments has been avoided, the ICW will not be sending us more help. We don't need them this time, Voldemort said. We don't need to launch another assault on Azkaban. I don't even think he is currently there. Have you forgotten about what that girl wrote down? Oh, you mean? Tonks recalled the note that Susan Bones left behind. There was a mention of a secret cabin in the middle of some woods, north of London. We never had the chance to search it. Then now why? The door opened again. The headmistress and Minister of Magic walked inside. We are going as well, McGonagall said. My apologies, but we heard your conversation from outside. We will be helping in this operation, the minister added. But you are the Minister of Magic, Tonks exclaimed. This mission will definitely be dangerous. Shacklebolt had a sad look on his face. There is no longer a ministry, And if this continues in this direction, magical Britain will soon stop existing. I was an Auror for over 20 years. I can be of more use with my wand. More people walked into the infirmary, Hagrid and Wormtail. I want to help too, Hagrid said. I am the one who introduced Harry to the magical world. I think it's appropriate if I am there too. I am going too, my lord. Wormtail glanced at Voldemort with mixed feelings. He was afraid of going into a dangerous mission, but he also knew that if this failed, there would be no more hope for any of them. It would just be a matter of time before Harry and his demons came to destroy this school, if the Muggles didn't find it first. Looks like we have a team then. Sirius scratched the scar on his face. And a goal. Excuse me. They all turned to the sound of the nervous female voice and found Hermione Granger standing at the entrance. Miss Granger, you should be in your common room, McGonagall told her. It is not a good idea to be wandering around at this time. You are all going to find him, right? If you're going to kill him, I want to be there as well, Hermione said. An expression of compassion appeared on the headmistress's face. Miss Hermione, I understand how you feel, but this is too dangerous. Leave it to the adults to handle this. I can help, she then said. I know more about him than anyone else. Also, I think I may know about this wooden cabin that you are all looking for. They looked at each other for a long moment. You can't seriously be considering bringing a child with us. McGonagall frowned. I would bring a toddler if that gave us better odds, Voldemort said with no hesitation. Minerva, I understand your position as an educator, Shacklebolt said, but this may be the last chance we have. McGonagall turned to Hermione. Are you sure about this? Chapter 118. I see something ahead. Tonks narrowed her eyes as she spotted a clearing ahead while they flew through a forest. What do you think? Is that the one? McGonagall asked Hermione, who was right behind her on the broom. Hermione took a moment to think. I'm not sure. It does look similar to the one I saw. She had only come to this location by being teleported by Harry, so she never got a good look from the air. Useless, Voldemort scoffed at her while flying by. We will need to check anyway, Sirius said. Should we wait until morning before getting closer? It's getting dark already, Tonks asked. It was common knowledge that the demons were more dangerous during the night. Wait, don't be stupid. We don't even know if this is the correct house, Voldemort said. Why don't we descend first? Shacklebolt pointed to an area that was still a bit far away from the clearing. We can approach slowly and observe the surroundings. That is a sound idea. Let's do that. Then we can make sure if he is here. Sirius touched his face. A permanent scar had been left across it, and after all this time, it still ached. Once on the ground, they took refuge behind the trees and slowly approached the clearing where the wooden house was. This is strange, Shacklebolt said while waving his wand around. What's strange? McGonagall asked. I can't detect any wards. I should have been able to pick something up already, but there is nothing, the minister revealed. Okay, now I'm starting to think that we got the wrong house, Sirius said. Do we keep going? Tonks asked. Maybe it's not magic, but there is something off with this forest. Hagrid was looking around, sniffing the plants and tapping on the trees with his fingers. It's weird, the smell. What is it, Hagrid? What is weird about the smell? McGonagall glanced at the giant. It's hard to describe, but it reminds me of the darkest areas of the Black Forest. Very dangerous creatures live in those parts, and trees have this kind of scent. The centaurs call it the smell of danger. A Muggle forest should not smell like this, so it's weird, Hagrid explained. It could be demons, Voldemort suggested. They may be magical in nature, but the source of their power lies somewhere else, so you will not be able to trace them with our detection spells, he said while pointing at what Shacklebolt was doing. Okay, let's go a bit closer. The clearing is right ahead, and I want to take a look at this house, Sirius suggested. The group continued moving very slowly while paying attention to their surroundings and checking for any kind of wards or traps. By the time they got to the last line of trees, nothing was found. That's the house, Hermione exclaimed the moment she saw it. SHH, lower your voice, Tonks told her. I think I see a light inside. In front of them was a large clearing, and at the end of it was a very typical wooden cabin. It was clearly well built, but at first glance, it didn't appear to have anything special. Next to the cabin was a very large rock that had been carved in the shape of an altar. Sniff, sniff, Hagrid furrowed his brows. This place reeks of blood. This is definitely the house, then. Voldemort glanced at the rocky object. That looks like a sacrificial altar over there. I bet he used it to summon his first demons. Hermione's body began to tremble at the reminder of the atrocities committed by Harry. Hermione, you should stay here, McGonagall suggested. The girl shook her head. No, I want to see this to its end. I still don't detect any kind of protections, the minister commented. I used every scan charm that I could think of. There are no traces of magic in here, not even a basic detection ward. He is either very confident or... Tonks didn't want to finish her sentence because the other option was that this place had been abandoned and they had wasted the entire day. No point in wondering. Voldemort walked from behind the trees and began to make his way to the house. Wait, shite, Sirius went after him. We should, Tonks glanced at the others. Yes, let's go, we face this together. Shacklebolt walked ahead. Whatever lies ahead of us. Spoken like a true minister, Hagrid commented. He sure did. McGonagall turned to Hermione and offered her a hand. Stay with me. The girl nodded and took the hand. Tusk, I don't like this. Wormtail looked back into the dark forest and shuddered. I really don't like this. He hurried to catch up to the others. Voldemort was the first one to reach the door, and just like Tonks had said before, he noted some dim lights inside. With his wand firmly gripped in his hand, he opened the door and walked in while Sirius followed close behind. The house was not too big. They were in an entrance hall and could see the dining room from there, as well as a set of stairs that led to the second floor. Voldemort glanced at Sirius and pointed up. There was a strange blue light that could already be seen on the stairs. Sirius pointed at his ears and Voldemort nodded. There was also a bizarre clicking sound coming from the same place. At the very least, they couldn't see or feel any demons. McGonagall and the others went inside as well, while trying their best to avoid making much noise. Voldemort was only halfway up the stairs when they heard the clicking noises getting louder. Getting a very bad feeling, he decided to pick up the pace and rushed on to the second floor, following the direction of the noise with his eyes. What the? At first, Voldemort didn't really understand what he was seeing. There were dozens of small blue screens on the other side of the room. All sorts of letters and numbers were being displayed on them. In front of the screens was someone seated. Voldemort aimed his wand at that person. It would be better if you didn't shoot me right away. You really want to hear what I have to say. The person in front of the screens turned around in his chair. Potter, Voldemort muttered. Harry smiled. Who else? Chapter 119. Voldemort kept his wand aimed at Harry, while the others made their way into the room. What is all this? McGonagall looked as confused as the others. There were all sorts of strange metallic machines scattered across the room. Is he really alone? How can that be? Shacklebolt asked with suspicion. Harry had always been extremely cautious and never left himself too exposed. I can assure you that I am the only one in this cabin, Harry responded with a wide smile. No one really believed those words. Voldemort clenched his teeth while wondering if this was some new way to mock him. Then die already. The Dark Lord was about to fire a curse at Harry when several of the screens behind him started to change, and, instead of just numbers and letters, they displayed aerial views of large cities around the world. There were names at the top of each of the displays: New York, California, Shanghai, Istanbul, Sao Paulo, Tokyo. What is all this? What are those for? Sirius wondered. I was about to explain it, but... Harry pointed at Voldemort. If the grumpy guy wants to kill me already, then you will die without knowing what happened to you. You monster, what did you do? Sirius's tone was cold as he glared at Harry. Whatever feeling he had in the past for his godson was now long gone. He no longer saw the creature sitting across from him as the son of James Potter. Tonks gasped. Don't tell me. Did you make more of those circles in those cities like the one in London? Harry's grin became more twisted. London? Oh, right. Did you like what I did with it? It's beautiful, right? If you don't shoot this monster, then I will. Shacklebolt walked to the front. Avada Ked. Wait, McGonagall stopped him from finishing the chant. "Let me go, Minerva," the minister shouted. "We need to know what he has done. What if the same thing happens in all those cities?" She pointed at the screens. This made him hesitate. "You think he is going to tell the truth?" Hagrid frowned, keeping an eye on Harry the whole time. "We can't trust anything he says." Harry let out a loud gasp. "That is so hurtful, Hagrid. I thought we were friends." "Shut up, stop pretending to be Harry Potter. We all know what you are, monster." Hagrid gritted his teeth. "I suppose that to you. I am a monster. But I can promise you that my words are very much the truth. I have no reason to lie," Harry told him. "Then tell us what you are plotting," Sirius said. "Make one right thing before we put you down." "Even my beloved godfather is saying those awful things?" Harry's eyes moved to Hermione, who was standing behind McGonagall. "Look who is here. The traitor is back." Hermione trembled. "I'm not a traitor." McGonagall moved to cover the girl. "You leave her out of this. She has suffered enough." They then heard more of those loud clicking noises, coming from the machines in the room. "What are those things for?" Shacklebolt asked. Harry raised an eyebrow to showcase his disappointment. "You wizards are really something. How can you live in this world and know so little about it?" He pointed at the machines. "Those are computers, military-grade ones." "Computers? That's one of those Muggle computers. I have seen them before," Wormtail commented. He had spent many years roaming around the Muggle world after all. "So that's why," Tonks exclaimed. "That's why you removed all the wards." "What do you mean?" Voldemort asked. "Magic interferes with electrical machines." It was Hermione who offered an explanation. "Magical wards would break any electronics. I once read a book about it." "Brilliant as usual, Hermione." Harry gave her a compliment, but the girl did not look too happy to hear it from him. "Okay, so you have a big computer. What for?" Sirius asked. "I'm losing my patience here," Voldemort groaned. "I was about to explain it," Harry said before turning back to his desk and tapping on a keyboard. The screens changed again and showed the letters and numbers from before. "Can you take a guess of what these are?" "Let me see." Hermione moved from behind McGonagall and approached the screens so she could read them better. "Hermione," McGonagall called with concern in her tone. "I'll be fine." Hermione tried to sound reassuring despite being terrified of getting so close to Harry. But she also knew that she was the only one with any experience in Muggle tech. She immediately began to read what those screens were saying. At first, it didn't make much sense, but she noticed that everything was arranged in tables. There were names on the left, followed by several numbers, and there were also letters at the top to indicate what those digits were depicting. "Those are places." She recognized the names of several important cities from several countries. Most of them seemed to be from either the United States or Russia, but there were also quite a few Chinese ones. The numbers were moving from one column to the next very quickly. The word heads was displayed on the top, as well as the words armed and disarmed. Most of the numbers were moving from the armed column to a different one on the right that had no name on it. Hermione was getting a terrible feeling while reading this, even though she still could not figure out what it was. This was until she found some letters at the bottom of one of the screens. AFGSC. She recognized that acronym from a documentary she saw with her family at the start of the summer. "What is that?" Sirius asked. "Did you figure something out?" McGonagall glanced at the girl and became concerned when she saw her face turn pale. "These are computers from the Air Force Global Strike Command," Hermione said out loud, and then understood what all those numbers were indicating. "They are nuclear bombs." Chapter 120. Harry gave Hermione a pleasant smile before turning to the others. "You should be ashamed that the student had to be the one to figure it out." "Are those numbers correct?" Hermione asked. "Are there thousands of nuclear heads being armed? That would be enough to destroy everything," the girl said with a horrified expression. "Are you insane?" Tonks shouted. "Are you trying to start a nuclear war?" "I'll just break those machines." Voldemort pointed his wand at the large computer in the other corner of the room. "Wait," McGonagall tried to get in the way. "We don't know if that will do more harm than good, and that machine may be the only way to stop this." Harry nodded. "That is a clever approach." Sirius frowned. "He is just playing with us. If we had a chance to stop this, he would never have let us find him alone and disarmed." "I appreciate the vote of confidence, Godfather," said Harry. "Don't call me that," Sirius snapped. "So what? You think only he can stop it?" Hagrid wondered if that was the case, because he couldn't imagine that happening. I had had enough of this charade. Voldemort moved closer. "Crucio." Despite his lack of knowledge about Muggle weapons, he at least was aware of the danger, so he didn't dare kill Harry just yet. "Urgh!" Harry clenched his teeth when the curse impacted him and fell from his chair. "What are you doing?" Shacklebolt exclaimed. "I didn't kill him, did I?" Voldemort returned a glare. "At least not yet." "Heh." Harry let out a chuckle. "That hurt a little bit." "Shall I give you another one?" Voldemort scoffed. "Go ahead," Harry said in a mocking tone. "See if you can do better." McGonagall got in front of him. "Harry, please don't do this," she begged. "If there is any part of the boy I knew still in there." The headmistress got closer and placed a hand on his shoulder. "Harry, please." She knelt at his side. While looking into his face, she could not see what he was doing with his hands. "Minerva," but Shacklebolt, who was standing at one side, was able to see Harry's nails grow into sharp blades. He moved his wand and fired a charm to push him away. "Urgh!" McGonagall felt something hitting her throat before Harry was sent tumbling to the ground. Tonks and Sirius grabbed her and pulled her back. "Minerva, oh no!" Sirius saw her grasping at the bleeding wound on her neck. Harry had somehow pierced her throat when she got too close. "I have a healing potion." Tonks hurried to produce a flask and opened it up. "Pour it on the wound, quick," Sirius exclaimed. It was obvious she would not be able to drink anything. Tonks did as he told her and emptied the flask's contents on the wound. But as she was doing this, they saw the life disappear from McGonagall's eyes, turning dull. Sirius was holding the woman in his arms. She's dead." Everyone was now looking at the headmistress, with complicated feelings. A loud laughter broke the short moment of silence. "Ha ha ha ha!" Harry was still on the floor, laughing like a maniac. "What a stupid woman." "Crucio." Voldemort shut him up with another Cruciatus. This time, no one complained or tried to stop him. "I had enough of this." Shacklebolt walked up to Harry. He then produced some ropes to immobilize him. "Boy, you better start cooperating before." "What is it?" Hagrid saw the expression on the minister changing. "Hold on." Shacklebolt knelt down next to Harry and waved his wand over him. "This can't be." He stood up and turned to the others, who were now staring at him. "He is dead." "What?" Tonks glared at Voldemort. "You killed him." Voldemort stood there impassively. "That's not possible. I did not hold the curse long enough to kill." If there was something he knew well enough, it was how to use that particular curse. "No, it wasn't the curse," Shacklebolt said. "There is blood coming from his mouth and wait, that's weird." Sirius placed down the body of the headmistress and approached as well. "Is that his blood? Why is it?" Tonks looked confused at the small pool of liquid next to Harry's mouth. "Blue," Hagrid commented. Indeed, the blood coming from Harry's mouth was blue. Is this because of some ritual he performed on himself? Tonks wondered. "Never heard of a ritual that." Voldemort's eyes became narrow. "There is a broken vial next to him." "Tisk," Shacklebolt saw it too. "I bet the bastard poisoned himself with something. I bet he didn't want to give us the satisfaction of taking him down." So the poison did that to his blood. Hagrid didn't sound too sure. "This doesn't make any sense." It was Hermione who spoke now. "He wouldn't take the easy way out. The demon lord I knew took joy in watching people suffer. If he wanted us dead, he would have liked to watch." The girl noticed something in one corner of the room. "Is that a camera?" "Hey, something is happening to the body." Shacklebolt got startled and stood up from the floor before stepping back. The magical ropes disappeared, and Harry's body started to shake. "He is still alive." Tonks pointed her wand at him. "No chance. I made several scans and even checked his pulse," the minister said with confidence. "No," Voldemort muttered, "this is." The body of Harry began to change. His dark hair disappeared, and his skin turned paler and changed into a gray tone. "This is not Potter." Voldemort gave his wand a flick and created a magical force to turn the body around. Loud gasps of shock were heard when everyone saw what the body looked like now. It was a humanoid being with no hair and gray skin. Not only was this a fake Harry, but no one believed it was even human. Could that be a demon as well? Tonks asked. A shape-shifting demon? He never used one before. Why now? Sirius wondered. He is playing with us, Voldemort huffed. No, this is not a game, it's much worse, Hermione said. A terrible thought came into her mind, and she rushed toward the computer. Chapter 121. Sirius glanced at the strange body with disgust. You mean he had these demons from the beginning? He could have used them to infiltrate our group, don't you think? Let's not go that way, Sirius, Tonks said. We can't start distrusting each other now. That's not what I meant. Huh, Sirius glanced over at Hermione, who was furiously tapping at the keys. Does she know what she is doing? Miss Granger, Shacklebolt got closer. What is it that you are doing exactly? Oh no, Hermione kept muttering while tapping on the computer. The screens kept changing, showing different tables that displayed a large number of digits. Hermione, Tonks tried to sound calm, please tell us what you found out. It's too late, the girl pointed at the demon's corpse. He must have used them for this, I bet he did. Girl, you're not making much sense, Sirius commented. Yes, you'd better be clearer. Voldemort frowned. My patience is limited. Hermione, Tonks placed a hand on her shoulder. Could you please? She stopped when she saw tears falling down the girl's face. Hermione pointed at the screens. Don't you see? Most of them have already been launched. It's too late. Wait, you mean the bombs? Sirius glanced at the screens. There was too much information displayed to make any sense of it. Yes, Hermione responded. United States, Russia, England, China, India. Harry must have infiltrated their nuclear bases and activated the bombs. Over 10,000 of them are already on the way to their targets. T-10,000, Tonks exclaimed. Is it as bad as it sounds? Hagrid asked, not having much idea of what those things could do. The Muggles used 2 of them during their last big war, Tonks said with a trembling voice. I believe a single one of those bombs is enough to decimate a large city. What? The Muggles did that? Wormtail exclaimed. Those were the first models from the 40s. I'm sure the modern ones are much more potent than that, Hermione pointed out. And you say he managed to launch 10,000 of them. That can't be right, Sirius said. I mean, wouldn't that just destroy the entire world? It will do that for sure, Hermione answered. That's what he always intended, Voldemort realized. Harry had no desire to conquer or control others, he just wanted to kill everyone. But there has to be something else. I'm sure he didn't intend to die himself. Shouldn't we get out of here at least? Wormtail asked. Sirius agreed with Wormtail for once. Yeah, can you see where the bombs are aimed? Maybe we can avoid TH. They are aimed everywhere in the world, Hermione screamed. There is no place that will be safe. Even if you could survive the explosion, the radiation that follows will certainly kill you. No, I don't believe that, Shacklebolt said. At the very least, we should be safe at Hogwarts. Yes, let's apparate back to the school. We can hide in there until all this is over, Wormtail suggested. Okay, yes, let's do that. Tonks went to grab Hermione. Come on, the most important thing right now is to survive. There is something wrong, Voldemort muttered as he checked his wand. I can't apparate, Wormtail exclaimed. Why is this happening? An anti-apparition ward? Shacklebolt suggested. But I'm sure there were no wards whatsoever when we came here, and it made sense since they would interfere with the electronics. Hey, I just saw something from the window. It was small and flying away, Hagrid said. I don't think it was a bird. That bastard, he got us. They turned to look at Voldemort, who now had a smile on his face. It was not a smile of happiness, though. Could there have been a demon nearby? One of those blue ones? They are probably smart enough to activate a ward on command, Tonks suggested. This was all a trap from the beginning, Voldemort said. We never had a chance to stop this from happening. The bombs were already launched. This cabin and that fake thing, he said while pointing at the dead demon, were nothing more than bait that Potter left behind for us in case we showed up. No. Wormtail rushed down the stairs and transformed into his animagus form as he escaped at full speed. Voldemort pointed at the screens. I bet one of those bombs is coming directly at us right now. Harry, Sirius clenched his fists, lamenting his fate. James, Lily, I'm sorry. I have failed you. Hermione closed her eyes and accepted her fate. No, we can still run, Tonks said. We can still. All of a sudden, they all heard a loud sound approaching and immediately knew what it was. It all happened extremely quickly, but it somehow felt like everything was moving in slow motion. Through the window, they saw the flying object hit the ground right in front of the house. This was followed by a blinding light and a wave of fire that covered everything in a several-mile radius. One moment, they were all inside the house, thinking about what to do next and how to stop Harry, and the next one, they were gone, as was everything else in its surroundings. Many miles away, the castle of Hogwarts received the first impact. The ancient castle wards did their best to shield its inhabitants from the damage, but the following explosion shattered its protections, and the resulting heat was enough to kill almost everyone. The few that managed to survive would soon come to lament their fate, as the deadly radiation was now enveloping the entirety of Hogwarts fields, as well as Hogsmeade. A battered and mangled janitor was walking through the basement of the castle. A moment before, he had been cleaning the corridor leading to the Slytherin rooms. Mr. Filch only managed 10 steps before collapsing on the floor, wondering what had happened while his organs dissolved, causing him excruciating pain and making him wish for it to end already. Chapter 122. At the time when Sirius and the rest were facing their untimely end, the rest of the planet's population was not faring any better. Just as Hermione had guessed, Harry had used the event in London to call out a large number of iodines. The shape-shifting demons were able to replicate perfectly anyone they wanted and even assimilate some of their memories to make their acting more believable. Harry put thousands of these demons all over the world, and they infiltrated the highest-ranking positions in governments and military bases. Their instructions had been very simple: to arm and launch as many nuclear heads as possible and target the largest cities on the planet. The attack was choreographed to happen everywhere at the same time, not giving the Muggles a chance to prevent it or fight back against it. By the time they realized what was happening, they could only wait for their last minutes out in despair before the bombs reached their intended targets. Humans living in the largest cities and metropolises of the world were the first ones to meet their end. Nearby towns and smaller cities would soon follow, victims of the massive amount of radiation unleashed into the air. Those would suffer slower and much more painful deaths. The lucky ones who were living in desolated areas at the time were going to survive for a bit longer, although most of them would soon wish they had died with the rest. On top of London's cathedral, where the ritual had taken place, was Abaddon, looking into the distance with a wide smile on his face. He actually did it, the demon said with a hint of disbelief. He had his doubts when Harry went on to claim that he was going to cause the deaths of everyone in the world and offer their souls to him. I can already feel them, so many of them. Nearly 6 billion souls were currently making their way into this hellish version of London, attracted to it like metal to a powerful magnet. This had been the second purpose for the London ritual: to create a fragment of the netherworld on Earth and have it act as a vacuum that would bring all the newly departed souls into a single point. It had been Abaddon's idea, of course. Oh, they are here. The demon could feel a rush of power invading his body as the mass of souls washed over the city. As much as he would like to, Abaddon knew that he would be incapable of taking so many souls for himself. Only one of the netherworld overlords would be capable of such a feat, as they were basically godlike beings. Compared to them, Abaddon was merely an insect, but he didn't mind. Nothing was going to waste after all. The remaining souls were being assimilated into the demonic city itself, bringing life into it and transforming it. The former city of London continued to expand as it absorbed more souls, and in time, its influence would come to cover the entire world, transforming it into a smaller version of the netherworld. The connection between the two dimensions would also grow stronger, allowing weaker demons to cross from one place to the other. Abaddon intended to be the ruler of this new demon world. Yes, yes, he roared with joy. His body grew larger and larger until the cathedral was unable to hold him and collapsed under him. Ha ha ha! The demon could not contain his happiness, as he had never felt stronger before. Oh, we have a few survivors. As his power grew, so did his senses, and the high-rank demon was now able to perceive that a small number of humans were still alive. A cruel smirk appeared on the demon's face. What shall I do with them? Soon enough, those few surviving humans would wish to be dead. A beautiful female with black hair was walking through the basement of Azkaban. She reached what looked like a normal wall and placed her hand on it. The moment she did this, a small rune appeared on the side, and the wall began to move, revealing a secret entrance. So tight! The female complained, as she had to bend her bat wings to enter the crevice, and began walking a very long set of stairs. This was a new addition that Harry had created in the fortress. The narrow staircase continued for over 2 miles, deep underground, even below the sea level, and beyond the reach of Azkaban wards. But the succubus, who was now walking down the stairs, did not complain about the inconvenience, and kept going for almost 15 more minutes, until she reached a flat surface that led into another door. Behind this door was a massive chamber, separated into several rooms. She went directly to the one at the end, where her master was waiting for her. As soon as she went inside, the succubus examined the room and found her red-headed sister lying on a large bed, completely naked, with a wide smile on her face. "Sister, you are back," the other succubus exclaimed with joy. "Are you going to join us?" "No, I came to deliver news." The black-haired succubus glanced over at the person sitting behind a massive desk. He was looking intently at the images displayed on the monitors. The large number of electronic devices in this room was one of the reasons for its awkward location. The other one was simply security. This bunker was extremely well protected and had many other available exits, in case the entrance from Azkaban had to be sealed. "How are things up there?" Harry turned around and looked at the succubus with his intense red eyes. As expected, the fortress has not received any significant damage. The nearest explosion had taken place over 50 miles away, the succubus explained. Harry nodded before glancing back at the monitors. Most of them were no longer displaying anything, as the signals had begun to disappear. Losing communication was an unfortunate side effect of detonating over 10,000 nuclear warheads. Most of the electronics out there had already been fried, and the rest were failing quickly. "How is the temperature?" Harry asked. "Still tolerable for us, but I don't think Master should go outside at the moment," she said in response. "It is quite hot up there." Harry nodded. Yes, I had already anticipated that. He tapped at one of the many books on his desk. He did not go into this blindly, but had spent many hours learning every possible detail about these Muggle weapons. It would have been stupid of him to use something he didn't understand. The temperature will begin to descend over the next few days. The dust clouds created by the explosions will soon cover the skies, blocking sunlight for many years to come. The planet will freeze and remain that way until it's all cleared up. "Is Master going to be okay?" the succubus wondered. Changes of temperature were not going to be a problem for the demons, as they were extremely resistant to the elements. As for himself, Harry still had access to his magic. "I'll be fine." Seeing that the last monitor had lost its reception, Harry stood up from the chair and stretched his legs. "Looks like my part is finally over. Humanity is done for. I'm sure Abaddon is going to have fun hunting down the remaining survivors." "Master," the red-headed succubus spoke while laying on the bed. "What are you planning on doing now? You have no more enemies to kill." "Now, who knows? I have time to think about that." He walked to one side of the room, where someone was laying on the floor. It was a blonde girl with long hair. Harry grasped her head and lifted it up, revealing her face. The black-haired succubus looked at the girl and recognized her. "Wasn't that one your follower, Master?" The demon noted that the girl was dead and her eyes had been carved out. "Did she displease you?" Harry let out a chuckle and dropped Luna's head. "Displease me? Not really. This one was probably the most loyal of the three. I just felt like removing all my previous attachments. This is a new beginning for me, you see." He pointed to a small jar that was resting on a wooden shelf. Inside, it was a clear liquid with a pair of beautiful blue eyes inside. "I kept her best feature." "I see," The succubus didn't seem to care all that much. She was just curious. "Would you like me to dispose of that?" she asked while pointing at the corpse. "No," Harry pointed at the redhead demon. "Your sister can do that instead. You will keep me company now." The demon had a lustful smile. "Whatever master wishes." While the redhead succubus grumbled and took the corpse of Lunar away, Harry removed his robes and climbed into bed, soon followed by the beautiful demon. "I'm in a good mood today," said Harry. "Not everyone can claim to have orchestrated the destruction of an entire world." "No, master is truly special," the demon said in a seductive tone as she climbed on top of him. Humans like to believe that good people always triumph, but they had no idea how wrong they were. "Sometimes the bad guy wins," said Harry with a cruel smirk on his face. The last human died only a week after the bombs dropped. The demons would come to expand their territory until they covered the entirety of Earth. Harry was allowed to keep his territory in Azkaban and the surrounding area. Contrary to human beliefs, demons always kept their word and honored their contracts with Harry. But perhaps they also did it out of respect to the most evil mortal they had ever met. Harry continued to live in his home, surrounded by his demonic servants and beloved Dementors, until he finally passed away at the age of 105, officially ending the human race and this tragic tale. At the end,